Today we are talking about request flow and response flow. We understand almost how to forward the request from front end to back end. We learn how to map it. Two mappings we do. One is from view to dispatcher servlet. Just a minute. Yeah. So one mapping that we do is front end to dispatcher servlet mapping, which is our front controller. Then dispatchers are related to our controller mapping. Two mappings we do. The one mapping is one-time effort. In web.xml file, we configure a URL pattern to map a front end to dispatcher servlet. And in spring.xml file, for each form and for each controller, we do mapping here. Okay. So this is old traditional approach. In annotations case, right, we use pure annotations only to map. We will see both the you know examples. First, if I go with the XML only, right, we learned how to forward the request until controller. From there, how to get the response also we need to see. How to get response back also we have to see. So if I show the example here, right, here is our example. Hello world. Here we have complete front end to back end flow. Once again, I'll show the screen here. I have form fields, name, email address. When I click on this button, this data will go to backend via this URL. So I configured that URL pattern in my web.xml file because first this data need to go to dispatcher servlet. So here I configured URL pattern with the expression. So this URL will match with this web.xml file expression because .rbu I'm using here also. So your request will go to dispatcher servlet first. From dispatcher servlet, it should go to a controller. So you need to implement a controller class from a controller interface. There you should override a handle request method. This is interface. In this interface we have this method. So as you know, while implementing interfaces, compulsory you should implement that interface method. So handle request method I am implementing. As part of this handle request method, I have HTTP servlet request and response objects. I can use this request to read the data which is coming from front end, and I'm just printing it, not doing anything. So how this controller is executing, where you have done that mapping, how your dispatcher servlet will forward request till here, you have done that mapping in Spring XML file just by doing this bean name configuration. Under bean name, I given my form URL and I given my controller name here. So your dispatcher servlet understands which controller should execute for that particular form. Till here we are good. Till here we are good. Let me rerun this again. Run on server, Tomcat, finish. So you can pass some data here. Click on say hello. So the data transferred to backend. Your controller is executing. Now from there I want to get some response back. My request went till here, fine. From there I want to get a response page back. So I want to have a response page here inside web content or inside webinf. Usually we put only one file, welcome file in web content. All other views we put it in webinf so that nobody can able to access them directly. So I'm creating a views folder. Inside this views folder I'm creating one response JSP. You can use simple HTML file or JSP. If it is a JSP, you can easily access Java code. If it is a HTML, response.html, something success. So a success message I want to show in the front end. Only this page I want to redirect. That's it. Till here enough. So how I can send this response.html back? Finally, I'm returning null here, right? The request is going till controller returning back null. Now instead of returning null, what you can do, you can create a model and view object. Model and view. In this model and view, right, you can set your view name here. View page name. Response page name only. You can set your response page name only here. The response page name is response only. The response page name itself response.html. Or else if you want to change it, success.html or output.html or student response.html, something. Whatever name you have for your front end page, right? Whatever name you have, forget about extension. Whatever name you have, that name only you should configure here. Your output page name only. And finally return that model and view object. Model and view object I am returning. We will talk about it, okay? So I'm returning this. As part of this return, what I have, response page name. That response page name I am returning it here. Who will receive this response? Again, the response also will come back in the same way. The request will go via dispatcher servlet to your controller, and the response also will come back to dispatcher servlet, and it will return page to front end. So this is my response page. But when it try to send a response back, it don't know in which location this response page is there. Response page is there in webinf. This is not a dedicated location. This is my custom folder. You may have views or you may have responses, any folder name you might have here. So the only thing that controller knows is your response page name only. No location, no extension. It is there in inside view folders. Inside webinf, inside view folders we have student response.html. But I have given only response page name. How it can identify the location and extension of your page. It will identify it via, just a minute guys. Just a minute. Yes. Velu, you joined, right? Okay. So finally, a response will be returned back. Response will be returned back in the form of model and view. That response will receive by whom? Dispatcher servlet. This dispatcher servlet know the response page name only, no location, no extension. So it should know location and extension of your page also. So for that purpose, we configure one view resolver. It need help to identify. It need help to identify your location and extension of your page. So for that purpose, just a minute, guys. Yes, link got changed. Just a minute, guys. Mhm. Yeah. So view resolver will help you to identify your output page location and identify output page type, whether it is JSP or HTML. For our case, it is HTML, and output page location is webinf slash views location. So view resolver is compulsory to identify location of your output page and your output page extension. So there is a bean class internal resource view resolver. This is a view resolver class. In this view resolver bean class, there are two setter methods, set prefix and set suffix. So that's where I'm using property methods, property tags. Property tags are for setter methods. So there is a set prefix method, set suffix method in this bean class. So you may check it. This bean class is having setter methods, set prefix and set suffix. You may see source code or API, so that there you will see the setter methods. So via first setter set prefix method, I am setting up my view page location, and via suffix method I am setting up view page extension. So what it will do finally, it will combine these three values. Your response, the response we have given is student response in my controller. So before the student response, it will append this location as a prefix. Okay, and you have suffix here, right? This suffix will append here at the end to your response. So finally it will get complete path webinf slash view slash student response dot html. Who will get that path finally? This dispatcher servlet. How it will get that? Via view resolver. Okay, this view resolver will help to identify your output page location and extensions, so that finally dispatcher servlet can pick up this response page and it can show success.html. Earlier only blank page I am getting, right? Now onwards you can see, if I submit it, I should be getting, okay, application is down, right? Let's start it and see. I should be getting a response page. Application is started. Just click again. Instead of blank page, now I'm getting success page. Okay, how I got the success means via view resolver. Via view resolver. View resolver is helping to dispatcher servlet to identify the location of your output page and extension of your output page. Okay, so let me explain you this architecture now, both the forward request and response request. Otherwise, yeah, let me take a new image. Yeah. So if you consider here, you have multiple front end forms, student registration, something employee registration, and you have something login. I have three forms, front end views I have here. So when I submit request from any of this front end, first it should go to dispatcher servlet only. So I do mapping in web.xml file in such a way to map all my views request to dispatcher servlet only. So here I'll be configuring URL with something star dot star or star dot extension to dispatcher servlet. The servlet name is dispatcher servlet. We configured this in web.xml file so that every view request will go to every view request will hit dispatcher servlet first. So every view request goes to dispatcher servlet because that's how we configure in web.xml. Dispatcher servlet. Now here dispatcher servlet need to forward this request to controller, right? Just this is a middleman. This middleman need to do what? It should forward request to your controller. For student registration form, I have a controller here, student to controller. My request should take it forward to student controller, who should map dispatcher servlet. So dispatcher servlet, how it will get that mapping, this form to this controller via XML file. I'll be having this configuration in my Spring XML file. There I do this mapping. How many types of mappings I do there? One is forward mapping, one is response mapping. Two kind of mappings, forward and response. Two mappings I need to put here in Spring XML file. Forward mapping means how to map your request till controller, and the response mapping from controller to how send response back, how to send response backs to views. These two mappings we have to do as part of Spring XML file. Two mappings we need to do, forward and response. So how to send request till controller and how to get the response back from controller. These two mappings that we have to do where in Spring XML file. So using this forward mapping, there is a helper class. Dispatcher servlet is having one helper class. The class name is handler mapping class. Handler mapping. Handler mapping. HM. Handler mapping class will read handler mapping class will read forward mapping. How to forward your request. This forward mappings will read by handler mapping. Handler mapping class will read forward mapping data. Handler mapping class will read forward mapping data. Or via handler mapping we configure forward mapping. Okay, so handler mapping will help you to forward request which is coming from front end to controller. The main components for us is view page and controller. These all are helper classes which are coming in between. My main focus is how to create this view and how to write this controller, but in between somebody should help us to map the request to till controller, right? So the handler mapping class will help here to identify which controller should execute. So dispatcher servlet will approach handler mapping class when you submit a request, right? The step one from user, when you submit a request, right? First the request will come to dispatcher servlet. Then dispatcher servlet will ask handler mapping. It will ask handler mapping for which controller I should execute. It will ask handler mapping who asks dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet will check with handler mapping object. Dispatcher servlet will check with handler mapping object which class I should execute for this so and so form. I got a request from student form. Which controller I should execute for it? Then handler mapping will suggest there is a student controller class which is configured for this so and so URL. Execute it. So it will take help here. Step 2, dispatcher servlet will take help of handler mapping just to identify which controller should execute. Handler mapping helps here to know controller. Know my controller. Where is my controller? Who will ask? Dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet will ask handler mapping class, what is my control? Then dispatcher servlet with this request, right? Dispatcher servlet will ask handler mapping with your action only. Let's say something registration dot rbu, something if you have here. This is, if this is your action, dispatcher servlet will mention that action and ask, I got this request. For this request, which controller I should execute? Handler mapping then says, there is a student controller class, you should execute it. Handler mapping will suggest it. So based on handler mapping suggestion, your request will forward to student controller. So the request will forward to student controller. Now inside student controller, you will do all your controller operations from here. You will take it forward to your business and DO classes. From here the request will flows to your implementations, business implementation and DOV implementations. If there are any CRUD operations required, DOV will interact with the DB and it will persist your data. And finally, as soon as you get the response back, DO, if there is any return value, it will return here. And if there is any return value, business will return here. So until Java exchanged perfectly with all the return values, even DB also will return after execute update, how many rows updated, if it is a select response something. So I got response till controller. From here, this controller need to give response back to view. So controller will return, right, as a step 4. What it should return? Any response which is coming back, like how we are taking input request, right? Like how we are taking input request from here, your controller may need to send response also back. In some scenarios we see, right, whenever we load the page, we load all the students information from the back. That means you are getting data from backend to front end also, not only from front end to backend. Backend also may send some responses back to your views. some data you may need to forward. How it will send that data to so and so response page? Student controller will send one response object back as a step 4. Once after execution of the complete flow, as a step 4, it will send one response object. So as a request, dispatcher servlet will send request and response objects. As a input, it will give request and response objects to your controller. But as a response, what it will expect? A model and view object. Model and view object. This model and view, in this model and view, model means the response data. View means response page. So model and view can hold response data plus response page name. Your output page data. If you want to send some data to your output page, model and view can hold your output page data plus your response page name. Both together is model and view. In our last example, we returned only page name, no response data. We will see that. Model and view can hold response data and page name both. Why I need response data? Maybe your request is for data only from database. I want to see all student details. Who should return that data? Your controller only. Your controller only need to help you to return, bring back data to your presentation layer, front end, by approaching your business class VO classes. So your controller will get response back in the form of model and view. Model and view is a combination of your response data and response page name. As a step 4, it will return that back to dispatcher servlet. Now dispatcher servlet again, it needs help. What help it needs? I got response back from student controller with the response data and page name only. I got page name only, but from which location I need to pick that page and what is that page extension? If you see this example, my controller gets returned only name student response. Is it a HTML page or it is a JSP page or is it something else? I don't know. And from which location this page I need to forward? Dispatcher servlet is blank here. It don't know the location and the extension of your page. Only page name only it got as a response back. So what it do next? It will take help of one more class. It will take help of one more class here. The class name is view resolver. Like handler mapping, right? Handler mapping helper forward mapping. The response mapping helper is view resolver. View resolver class will ready with this response map. We do both response mapping and request mapping. View resolver class will read your response mapping and it suggests to dispatcher servlet as a step 4, right? Dispatcher servlet will ask view resolver, hey view resolver, what is my response page location and extension? View resolver says so and so location developer suggested, so and so location he given and so and so extension he given. So you need to combine this location as a prefix, this extension as a suffix to your response name like this. Location as a prefix and this extension as a suffix to your response page name. You need to append it. Who do that? Dispatcher servlet. Review resolver will give location and extension of your page. Then dispatcher servlet will do what? For this response page name, it will append location plus response page name plus extension. It will append simple string append logic it will have internally, so that it appends your location with the response page name, and it will with extension. Finally, it will become the response path, full path it will generate finally. So now it have the full path. What it will do? It will send response back. Finally, it sends response back. Whoever requested, right? For them, it may return same page or a different page based on the response which you have given. So this is how the request flow goes, and the response flow will come back. Yeah, I'll show it. Right? Every example is showing, right? We will see in code also. Okay, don't hurry. For every thing we will be seeing an example. Now see one more application. I'll be creating one more application, front end to back end to front end. Dynamic web project, student registration. Okay, we will do complete end-to-end application here. We will do complete end-to-end application with the very core concepts. Student registration application. Okay, full-fledged application we do. So I created a dynamic web project. So as usual, you need to configure web.xml file. These all are common. So I'll be copying web.xml and servlet.xml to webinf. So my dispatch servlet is configured. Fine. And let's configure jar files also here. Hello world, yeah. I will add few more jar files. Okay, for CRUD operations also. For now, just to see a request and response flow. Let's create the same front end index.html page. Yeah. So now I have front end here. Say hello.rbu, the name, email address. Now I'll change this to registration.rbu. I'll change this button name to register. So as soon as I click on this register, this is my URL. It take forward data, name, email address to my dispatcher servlet. So from here, dispatcher servlet need to forward to controller. Let me write a controller class here, com.rpu dot web. I'll write a controller student registration controller. Implement it with the controller interface. I'll be overriding handle request method. Request and response. So I know how to read the data. Request to dot get parameter will help you to read the data. So read three fields and print them. Or I want to send same values, name, email, address values again back to front end. In front end, I want to display them. Meanwhile, here we will do some JDBC operation or consider this data is saving it into database. I'm not doing it right away, but consider it is saving it into database. And finally, I want to send response back. Same name, email address. How you can do that? Via model and view, you can send it. Model and view, you can create a model and view object. You can set your response page name here. Okay. If you want to send something success, JSP, you put success. And extension and location, we can configure in XML file. So I have page name where I should set the data also as per architecture. So I'm sending this data request response. So from there I want to send response page back where I can configure this data. You can configure it here. Create a map object. You put string key and value here. New hash map. In this map you put your data. Map dot put name name. Set email address address. So I have a map object here. How I can forward this map object along with your model and view, you may configure here your map object also. View name, comma, map object. So you can forward it, your view name and map object. Both together we call model and view. This is your model, which is response. And this is your view. This is the response page name. Response page name is the combination of model and view. Return it back. Bus. Where do I configure it? Here. Here this is the view resolver. Here I configured it. The response page location and extension. Now I want to read my data, map data in JSP page. You may put .jsp extension and create one page here. WebINF views. Here create one success.jsp. My response page name is student response, right? Yeah. Or else let me make it success. Any page name. So I have success page. Here I want to read the data. Who suggests to your dispatcher select your success page location? View resolver. View resolver is having location and extension. Now, while sending response, always it goes to views location, and based on this extension, by combining your view plus page name plus extension, it will pick up this page and it will send as a response back. What I want to see it in response, whatever parameters I set here, right? Name, email, address, I want to read them here in the response page. Using simple expression, you may put your keys here, name, email, address and try to print it. Let's run it. Almost deployed. Enter name, email, some address, register. I'm getting 500 internal error. Cannot load bean class definition hello controller. mapping is wrong. In index.html page, the request is reg.rb, and I don't have even controller. Student reg controller I have, but we just did copy paste, right? Hello controller I don't have. Student reg controller I have, and the request also slash reg dot rb. Now your request mapping is correct. Restart. So finally, success page I received, but my expression it is showing it to me itself without values. Maybe use a dollar sign, save it. Mhm. Will it work with hash sign? Sometimes these expressions will work, sometimes not. Okay. So instead of this, what I will do, built-in page objects, right? JSP page objects. I will use response dot get attribute or request dot get attribute. What is not showing? Yeah. So just give your parameter names here, which are there in map. I'll be using scriptlet tag. Name, email, address. So I'm getting name, email, address, extra. I can see response data. Usually we never much use this JSP page. I mean applications nowadays mostly separate pure front end and pure backends we are implementing. But in case if you have a monolithic application with the JSP pages, there you can use this expression language. If it is supporting, else you can use simple uh, JSP scriptlet tag to print your response data here back. Okay, anything else for your convenience, you can use it. So this is how we can take forward request from front end to back end. Here if you see no handler mapping I used. Directly I mapped it to controller my request. But as per architecture, when I click submit button first, when I click submit button here, when I click this submit button here, the first request going to dispatcher servlet. From here it will ask handler mapping for forward mappings. So but here I didn't have any handler mapping, which means the default I'm using default handler mapping here. If I configure with bean name, it will use bean name URL handler mapping. Okay, or else you can configure that here. Bean name URL handler mapping. So this class you can configure here. A bean class, bean name URL handler mapping. Fully qualified path. Bean name URL handler mapping. And via this handler mapping, you can call setter method b dot set URL path with ID. We configure basically path root handler, default handler. Okay. Set interceptors. Here also we can configure array of path matcher. Okay. We'll see bname URL handler mapping we need not to configure. This is the default one which uses to identify this name and map it. We will use other URL handler mappings here. In tomorrow's session I'll show you simple URL handler mapping. Okay. So we have multiple handler mappings. We discuss about them, and the programmatic multiple classes we have. We will see them. Then we will go to the annotations. In annotations, you never see handler mappings and direct controller configurations. Okay, we do everything via annotations. Yeah, so that's it for today. Tomorrow we will see few more programmatic examples and we'll jump into annotations. Okay, I hope you understand this architecture, right? Request and response flows. Correct. Web project. In Spring Boot, we can create a simple Spring Boot project. Even here also, right? Maven project we can create with web structure, web project structure. During the Maven project creation, you may choose okay web project parameters here. We have yeah maybe here you can search dynamic web project capabilities, Maven web app, and you can create web application. Okay, just giving right click, uh, right artifact ID and via form you can add them, form dependencies. You need not to add manually. Okay, yeah, you can see this is dynamic web project via Maven. Here you have webinf to add web XML file. Yeah, go to form and add dependency here. Add each dependency in this dependency section. Your Spring dependencies. Each dependency you can add web MVC, web dependency, context dependency, beans dependency, and the commons utils dependency. You can add 5 dependencies here. Okay, try it. Else I'll show one example tomorrow. Okay, with Maven. No, actually, complete model and view it will not return. Dispatcher servlet purpose only model and view it will get till here. It is not going to forward model and view to response. It will just pick up the data from your response object. Okay, maybe your doubt is why it is not returning complete model and view back, right? It will not return. Model and view is a combination of your response data and response page name. So dispatcher servlet needs this response page name. So using this page name, it will ask view resolver about the location and extension, and it will construct a path. For that path, it will send this response data by setting up this data into request.set attribute. It will use request.set attribute. Here from your map, it will read each parameter and set it. That's why you are using get attribute. Hmm. Yeah, yes. So, yeah. So while setting up data here, you should imagine that whatever data you are setting up into model, you imagine that you are doing setting up it into request object, request dot set attribute. Whatever I have done here, you just imagine that you are doing it request dot set attribute. So that's why I can able to read that there. Here request dot set attribute key comma value we can put. So the same thing that I am applying on response page and reading the data. Finally, once I got response, get attribute. Hmm. So any object you can set, not only simple strings. Request dot set attribute can hold a list object or any map object. Anything you can set here. Here we given simple names only, right? Rather than this, you may have a complete list object. List of student objects I want to forward to front end and iterate it. You can do that. Okay, anything we can do. Response page. Hmm. Yeah, don't confuse here. This model may be the data response coming from the model. Imagine it that way. Or don't consider it like your business object. The model holds, this model holds the data. Okay. And the business model holds all the business logic and DO logic. Okay. Yeah. Possible. First controller is mandatory. So first place you need to connect with controller only. You can't connect with the business. Without controller, no business, no DO. This is very important layer. First your views data must should come to this controller. Without controller, you can't get request which is coming from front end. This is the main part which gives shake hand to front end. Then from here it will connect with your business. Then business connects with DO. Without this you can't imagine. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So make you presenter. Yes. Go there. So is it resolved? Okay. Okay. Hmm. Hmm. So it will use 1.8 libraries only for compilation and runtime. Though you have higher versions. Hmm. Yes. It will use 1.8 libraries. Yeah. It will download, right? Maven always prefers to get all the libraries, right? If not available in local. Yeah. So it have that compatibility. Any version we can configure. Okay. So is it Maven? Okay. Maven. Okay. So the compiler version, which is your Java version, right? Yeah. So while procuring server, not only Tomcat, we will procure software, Java also. We will install Java also in our server. Why so? My application is deploying it in Tomcat only. Why I need Java? Though you are using Tomcat, Tomcat is having some libraries only, jar files. That jar files end of the day should run on your Java only. Tomcat Catalina library should run on your Java only. So end of the day you need Java platform for anything. Either you use Tomcat server or WebLogic server. If you have Java code, the final destination is your Java runtime only. Java platform. Yeah, Java software you need. Java on top of Java software only, you should install Tomcat. Without Java software, Tomcat also will not perform. So when you place your var file, right, here you have lot of classes in your var file. When you place this var, right, when you place this var here, var is a simple kind of a zip file. It will extract from var file and that source package and your JSP packages, everything it will put here. Okay. So when there is a request from user, when there is a request from front end, always front end request goes to Tomcat. So what Tomcat will do? It will check whether there is any servlet for this view or not. Inside the source, if there is any servlet class for that form, right, immediately it will create object. This servlet object creation logic they put here. Let's say the servlet class name is a servlet. Tomcat will do what? It will try to create object for that a servlet. A servlet a equal to new a servlet. That logic they have. Similar like class dot for name load dot new instance we use it, right, before learning IOC. Using the same library, same class dot for name, it will load your class dot for name, and it will place your servlet class name here, a servlet, and call dot new instance. So when Tomcat calls this, when Tomcat library do this, what will happen internally? Which class it is? Is it Tom class or your Java library class? Class is a Java library class, right? For name and loading class. So when I mention it, what it means? It is asking to load this class into Java. Here is the loader. This is the loader. It will load immediately your class into Java and creates objects. It will create object here. One object it will create for a servlet. End of the day, these all objects are sitting not in Java, right? Finally, where all these objects will sit in your computer? RAM. In RAM, we call that particular memory as a JVM, which is dedicated to your Java software. Not only Java, right? If you see my browser application, I have here Edge application, I have some STS, Paint, and running one screen recorder, everything running here. All that applications are running in RAM only. My screen recorder and my Eclipse software and my Tomcat, which is running. For everybody, RAM need to allocate memory. For your Java also it will allocate memory here. That is what we call JVM. In that JVM only, finally the physical memory will be exist. Finally this object will be here only, in RAM only. We call it as JVM. That will be created via your Java software only. Java binary classes you will use class loaders. Via class loaders it will load your class and it creates objects. There are multiple techniques to load and create via class dot for name or by using new keyword. Anyway, the final destination is your RAM. If somebody asks where all these objects are sitting, means on your RAM only via Java software. Who creates your Java software? Using class loader, it will load your class and create objects based on your instructions. You need to instruct. Tomcat instructs to this Java to create a servlet object. Then what about my objects? Dispatcher servlet is only the servlet. What about other classes? I have here other classes. Here I implemented my controllers, business, DAO, lot of classes, connection pools I created. Who do create that objects? Again, Tomcat interrupted a dispatcher servlet. Tomcat touched a dispatcher servlet and it created dispatcher servlet object. Inside a dispatcher servlet, I have IOC. IOC container I am starting. When you start this IOC container, again IOC container will approach whom to load your classes. It approaches Java. So it will load all these libraries, C, B, T, C, P, all classes will be loaded. All that objects will be created. Your controller objects, business objects, DAO objects, connection pool objects. Final end of that at the memory, that the destination location for all these is JVM. So finally, where all these objects, your servlet objects and your business objects, everything is there in your JVM only. Java Virtual Memory, which is in RAM. Who loads all these classes? Your Java class loader. Servlet will load via Tomcat and all your controller business DO classes will load via IOC. The loader is different. Okay. This is how it will create objects.